back to my channel. In today's video we are going to do some stenciling and ink blending. We're going to do it two different ways, one more of a softer pastel-y rainbow and the other one more of a jewel toned rainbow. So first things first, I have a Cricut mat that I have cut down. That is usually what I stencil on nowadays. I know there are lots of special tools on the market, but I don't possess those, so we're going to go with what I've got. I have my ink blending brushes that I purchased off to Amazon, and then I pulled a couple of sentiments from my stash. These have been foiled. One was foiled in an iridescent foil, the other one was done in like a copper foil. I have some PINKfresh Studio envelopes and cream colored card bases and white A2 size panels. I do end up cutting down those A2 size panels just a little bit, just to let that cream colored card base show a little bit more and kind of help the images pop. This is the 7 Sis Stamp Poppy Filled Stencil. There are 4 stencils in this pack, 3 that do the petals of the poppies, and then 2 that do, and then, excuse me, 1 that does both the center of the poppy and these greenery. So here I have PINKfresh Studio and Gina K Designs inks. I have their ink cubes. I recently went through and labeled my Gina K Designs inks on the top so that it was easier for me to see based on how I store them. The gathering of inks we have here from PINKfresh Studio are Sparkling Rose, Passion Fruit, we have Apricot, Lemon Whip, Meadow, Aquamarine, Candy Violet, and Rocky Shore. And then for Gina K, we have Cherry Red, Tomato Soup, Prickly Pear, Christmas Pine, and the Navy, Plum Punch, and Black Onyx. So the green, so the Christmas Pine, the Black Onyx, the Meadow, and the Rocky Shore, those are going to be, I guess, represented in the rainbow with the greenery and the center. So like the leaves and the center of the poppies. So I just took off the clear carrier sheet that is on this little Cricut mat that I have here, and I am placing my stencils down. So I'm going to kind of line this up on the back of the stencil, and then I'm going to line the cardstock on the back of the stencil, and then I'm going to line the stencil up to where it matches in the corner of this mat right here, so that every time I lay down another stencil, I don't have to worry about the paper moving, because the sticky mat's going to hold the paper. But I just replace the stencil in that same corner every time, and I shouldn't have any trouble whatsoever with it lining up. Just for some added security, I did go and use the little pawn magnets that came with my glass board just to help hold everything down. But that stencil didn't really move a whole lot because that Cricut mat is exposed at the top, and that kind of helped hold everything secure. So I'm going to really speed up this video. This is 4 times as fast. All I'm doing is ink blending in rainbow order. The petals of these flowers do overlap one another, so be conscious of that when you are applying color down, because you don't want to create mud unless you're going for like a fall type poppy, if that's a thing that you want to do. But the look I was going for, I really didn't want there to be mud, so I really wanted to have, in this situation, a very soft rainbow. And so I was very deliberate on what color I put next to one another, because I didn't want to create mud. I didn't want to create like a brown, gray, ugly color. So if you ink blend in rainbow order, you should be just fine. Now, I did discover when I first started this that I had the orange and the yellow reversed. In the end, it doesn't make any difference. That yellow ends up getting kind of lost. I feel like the orange, that apricot, really takes over, which is fine. I was pleased with how it turned out in the end, but if you want to make sure that you like maintain all of the colors, maybe start with your yellow first. I know that Amy R does that often because she has discovered that the yellow gets kind of lost very quickly. So she usually starts with her yellow, in addition to the fact that other colors will take it over, and you won't get like a true yellow that you're going for. So if you go and start with your yellow, you can help kind of alleviate that and maintain that color and make sure it's still there in your final product. This is the greenery, so I'm going to use that meadow and that rocky shore, and I'm going to switch to a smaller blending brush here. I also purchased these off of Amazon, but PInkfresh Studio actually has mini ink blending brushes that look pretty much exactly like this. These are just a lot cheaper. I can't speak for the quality compared to the PInkfresh Studio ones, just because I don't have those. I have these, but they look, just from all appearances, as far as like pictures and stuff, they look exactly the same. So that's just something to take note of. I just switched to this smaller one just for the fact that this was a smaller area and I didn't want to get that gray into the green and on and on. So in order to get your paper off of a sticky mat, bend the sticky mat. That keeps your paper straight and keeps your paper from warping. So that was how that one turned out, and I thought that was super cute. We're going to move on to the jewel toned one. So this is where we have all of our Gina K inks. Sorry that the other 4 are not visible, but I did the same thing, starting with the red and going through rainbow. I left the pine and the black onyx for the greenery and for the center of the poppy. So again, it's the same thing. I'm just ink blending in rainbow order. One of the things that I thought about after the fact, of course, because hindsight is always 2020, was to do the centers in like a paste or a glitter gel or something just to give it a little more dimension and interest. I didn't do that on this card, but that is something that you could do. I've seen these ink blended in all red and kind of that actual like true poppy color, kind of that reddish orangey color. And it is still really, really pretty, just because these leaves or the petals of these poppies overlap in such a way that even if you use just one ink, you still get lots of variation and lots of dimension, just because you're going to get lots of layering. So if you don't have a whole lot of ink colors or you don't like a rainbow, that is also an option, just to give you some further use and other looks from the supplies you have and from this particular stencil. So the other thing that I did is I actually wiped the stencil clean between layers before I took the stencil off. I didn't necessarily have to do that, but I felt like, because I just kind of chucked them off to the side in between layers, I didn't want the back of the stencil to get yucky and then me forget to clean the back, and then have a mess on my hands and have ink transfer everywhere. So here is that black onyx and those smaller blending brushes. For sure on this one, I did go and kind of wipe that black onyx ink off, just because that is such a dark ink. It probably wouldn't have made much of a difference because this pine tree is really dark also, so it probably wouldn't have made all that much difference. Or Christmas pine, sorry. It probably wouldn't have made that much difference, but I felt better doing that. And this is the spot where I thought, man, I should have added some sort of paste over these centers, or over one of the layers of the petals would have been cool too. Would have been a kind of a fun look. Again, just to get your paper off, just peel it away. I do take my stamp cleaner and spritz the stencils front and back and clean them that way, and I also clean that little sticky mat the same way. So this is the 2 of them ink blended. I did decide, are those just pretty? I can't decide which one's my favorite. My intent was to go ahead and do the pastels, so I kind of thought that would be my favorite, but I am really digging those jewel tones. I think those are super pretty. I did because I wanted to have more of the cream card base show and just kind of provide that nice border to trim these down. So I trimmed 1/4 inch off of each side, right and left side, and then I trimmed 1/2 inch off of the bottom, just because I didn't want to lose some of that really pretty ink blending and color variation that I had on that top poppy. So I just decided that I could sacrifice some of the greenery at the bottom, leaves and stems. And I do that to both of these panels. Because these are going to be a very, very simple card, I wanted to add some, quote unquote bells and dimensions, some interest. So I just have some Amazon Fun Foam that I purchased eons ago that I'm trying to kind of work through. So I just cut it down to size and am gluing it with wet glue on the back. It really does not take a whole lot of glue. And besides, these inks are water reactive, as well as that paper is not super thick that I use. This is just some PInkfresh Studio cardstock, so it's not like a super thick weight. And so if you use a lot of wet glue, it can warp, and I didn't want to do that. So I just adhered that straight down to the card base and centered it, and then I used this gem holder to kind of apply some pressure and some weight just to make sure I got good adhesion. So those sentiments that I had, they were kind of cut weird. Apparently I had like weird vision that day that I cut those out because they were really all sorts of crooked. So I went through and found some sentiment banner dies. I believe these are from Simon Says Stamp, and I went ahead and kind of cut those out using those sentiment banner dies, or sentiment strip dies, excuse me, not a banner. And I did that to both of them, just kind of lining them up and then using my little Sizzix sidekick to help me cut those out and make them a little more straight, so you don't have to look at them sideways to make things look straight and give yourself a tick. I glued the sentiments down flat just because I had popped up the actual colored panel, and so I didn't want to add even more dimension. So I did just adhere those down flat to the card. And then I felt like this card needed just a little bit more something. So I went through my stash of embellishments and I found these clear little droplets from BLINGEE Thingy on Etsy. And I'm just going to adhere those down with some liquid glue. This is some reptile glue. It does dry clear. So these little droplets are going to look kind of cloudy at the first. But then as it dries, they do dry clear and you won't even notice they were there. And they almost look like water droplets on these flowers. You could have added more, but I didn't want to add more. I felt like the 3 kind of around the sentiment and on the flowers and greenery was plenty. But I still felt like it needed just a little bit more shine and some more interest. So I take a SAKURA Jelly Roll pen, like clear glitter pen. And I'm just going to add some lines to the petals. I didn't add anything to the greenery and to the leaves and stems, but I did add some just sparkle and shine to some of the petals, and then to a dot of it on the centers, kind of the points or tips of the centers of the poppy. And I did that to both cards. And then that is both cards complete. So and I felt like that actually did kind of finish things off. I'm trying to show you some of that shine. It's something so simple, but it adds just a really nice touch. So I'd be interested to see which one is your favorite, more of the pastels or more of the jewel tones. I think, shoot, I don't know. But anyway, thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate you. And until then, we will see you next time. Bye.